I actually didn't think I really liked mechanical keyboards that much until this one showed up. And now I might actually be switching for good. The new NuPhy Kick75 is customizable, it's wireless and of course wired, and you can even 3D print your own parts for it. Plus, this is the first keyboard that works with both high profile and low profile keycaps if you buy the right components. So let's check it out. So first of all, when you unbox the Kick75, you get a few different bits and pieces. You get a USB cable, a 2.4 gigahertz receiver. You also get a keycap and switch removal tool and some spare keycaps, plus some information quick start guides and some cool like retro 8-bit style stickers. And then of course you get the keyboard itself. So you can either order it with the high profile switches or the low profile switches. I got the low profile switches on mine, and right out of the box I was really impressed with the overall build quality and the aesthetic. This is my second NuPhy keyboard, and so far I have not been disappointed with the overall build quality of NuPhy keyboards. This one is made of all plastic, but it feels really premium, very solid and high quality plastic. I also got the combo wrist rest, which can be swapped between a low profile kind of configuration and a high profile configuration. And this seriously feels so soft. It's really nice under your wrists. It's almost like some sort of memory foam, which feels great. But again, the actual aesthetic of the Kick75 is kind of retro 8-bit gaming inspired. And it's even got on the back here this kind of Mario themed 8-bit gaming graphic, and it even says 8-bit Odyssey on the side of the keyboard. So if you like this kind of retro style, I think this will be right up your alley. To me, it's kind of halfway between kind of like a gaming keyboard and something a bit more professional looking. I think I personally like it a bit more on the professional looking side. And so initially the standard keycaps that come with it, I thought didn't quite match the vibe of my office and my desk setup, but I was easily able to switch out some of the keycaps with my previous NuPhy keyboard, which I thought matched my vibe a lot better. And it comes with this bright red control knob. However, again, I thought it was a bit bright for my setup, so I 3D printed a gray control knob to replace it, which is actually really cool that you can customize and 3D print your own components. I'll talk a bit more about that later. Now, like I mentioned, NuPhy designed this keyboard to be compatible with both high profile and low profile switches, which is pretty unique. However, I wasn't sent any high profile keycaps and I don't have any. I've only got low profile, so I wasn't able to test it in high profile mode. But it's worth noting, if you do want to switch between the two profiles, you'll just need a different cover kit. And this looks like it involves taking off all the keycaps, obviously, and then replacing the upper part of the plastic on the keyboard. That is sold separately, so if you want to switch between the two profiles, you just have to buy that accessory. Now let's talk a bit about the actual typing experience, because that's arguably the most important, aside from the aesthetic, of course. Now I got the red nano switches, which are actually a collaboration between Gateron and NuPhy. And to be honest, I think out of everything on this keyboard, it's actually the switches that have converted me the most to mechanical keyboards. They feel honestly incredibly smooth. When I first got it, I felt like I was typing on a cloud, and the sound is surprisingly good. They've got a very satisfying click without being too loud or too quiet. Now for context, I'm a long-time user of Logitech MX keys, and these are obviously quite low profile. They're more like laptop keys, so it's quite different to a mechanical keyboard. So that's kind of what I'm used to. And then I did switch for a little while to the NuPhy Air 96. And the Air 96 was my first mechanical keyboard, so it was quite an adjustment. And while I absolutely love the aesthetic of the Air 96, I ended up switching back to my Logitech MX keys after a while. And that was essentially because of the typing experience. I found that when I was typing quickly on the Air 96, I was just always accidentally tapping the wrong key at the wrong time, and so it drastically increased my error rate when typing, which obviously isn't ideal. However, since using the Kick75, I have not had that experience. I've been able to type on this keyboard pretty much as fast as I could type on my Logitech MX keys without any errors, and I think it's just because the keys overall are firmer. Using the Air 96 now, I can really feel how those switches are just a lot looser and more sensitive, and so to me, the Kick75 just has the perfect balance of that really nice mechanical feel, but also being firm firm enough so that I'm not accidentally making a whole bunch of errors. Plus, I also personally much prefer the sound of these switches on the Kick75. Even though I just work from home by myself, so I'm not distracting anyone, I actually just find these red switches a lot more satisfying to listen to. So overall, I've been really impressed with the typing experience. The only thing that I wish this keyboard had was a numpad, because I did use my numpad on the N96 quite a lot, but honestly, I'm getting used to just going back to the standard number one at the top, so it's not too big of a deal. Now let's talk a bit about the features and connectivity of this device. So obviously you can connect it with USB, and then you're going to have no problems in terms of latency and connectivity and lag and all that kind of stuff. You can also connect it with Bluetooth, which I've been using quite a bit. I've had absolutely no issues. I mean, I generally just use my keyboard for typing. I don't really game that much on my computer, so I can't speak to that experience too much. The only downside to connect it with Bluetooth, obviously, is that when the keyboard goes to sleep and my Mac goes to sleep, it takes a little while for both to wake up and repair. I just started using it with the 2.4 gigahertz receiver, and I'm finding that experience really good. It's also got the ability to switch between multiple devices, which is quite similar to the Logitech MX series. So it's a really nice feature if you do use multiple devices. Next, it has full RGB backlighting, and honestly, it's really impressive. Got a whole stack of different effects. You can switch between these on the keyboard itself, or you can use either VIA or NuPhy IO, depending on which version of the keyboard you've bought, to customize the RGB lighting. And there's just a whole stack of different effects that you can really customize. It's really impressive. And the other thing that I noticed about this compared to the N96 is that it's significantly brighter. Now, I work in a pretty bright studio for the most part, and so on the N96, I couldn't really see the backlight that much, but with the Kick75 at 100%, the backlight is really obvious, which is really nice because then I'm actually able to appreciate and enjoy the RGB. Now, like I mentioned before, another cool thing about this keyboard is that NuPhy is releasing 3D printing files. Now, as far as I know, you can't print the keycaps, which is a little bit disappointing. I kind of wish you could print them and customize them, but you can at least print some of the other components like the control knob. Now, I'm sure you can get really creative with the designs and customize these to be really unique to your particular setup. I'm not that advanced in 3D modeling yet, unfortunately, so I've only just basically switched colors with the components. But again, if you've got a 3D printer and customization is important to you, then that's definitely a factor to consider. All right, so I quickly mentioned the VIA and NuPhy IO customization, so I just want to quickly talk a bit more about that, especially if you're someone who's new to mechanical keyboards, kind of like myself. So there's two versions of this keyboard that you can buy. One is the NuPhy IO version, then the other one is the QMK/VIA version. Now, if you don't know what all of these terms mean, basically they're just ways of customizing the keyboard with things like lighting effects or custom keys and macros using software on your computer. So QMK is a really powerful customization tool for mechanical keyboards in general, but it's quite difficult to use as far as I know. And so VIA is kind of like an in-browser skin on top of QMK that lets you easily and quickly customize your keyboard. So you just download a JSON file for the Kick75, load that into VIA, and then you can fully customize it on the fly. Now, NuPhy also has their own customization tool called NuPhy IO. I personally haven't used this because it's not compatible with this version of the Kick75. It looks pretty good to me, but VIA does everything that I need it to do. And personally, I haven't really gotten into macros just yet. I've got a Stream Deck, so that kind of does all the macro stuff that I need. So I haven't really dived into macros on a keyboard. But if that's something that's important to you, that's worth looking into. And speaking of the two versions of the keyboard, let's talk a bit about the battery life. The NuPhy IO version of the Kick75 has a 2,500 mAh battery, while the QMK VIA version has a 4,000 mAh battery. So it's a pretty big difference. Obviously, I haven't compared them, so I can't tell you that the QMK version has significantly better battery life, but in theory, they should get pretty similar runtime. The reason for the bigger battery on the QMK version is because the way QMK works, it draws more electricity, while NuPhy IO is actually more efficient. So you might be better off getting the smaller battery, which is cheaper, and you probably get very similar battery life. But in my experience, the battery life on this has been really good. I've used it for probably 2 weeks now in the Bluetooth mode with about 50% brightness on the RGB, and I haven't needed to charge it yet. And that's with pretty consistent daily use. I'm talking like 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. So it's definitely pretty solid. And then of course, if you plug it in using the USB cable, you don't have to worry about the battery life anyway. But of course, your battery life will vary a bit depending on how often you're using it, how bright you've got the RGB, all that kind of stuff. All right, so let's talk a bit about my final thoughts and recommendations. Am I actually gonna stick with the Kick75, especially as someone like me who kind of prefers a better typing experience? So for me, there's a few pros and cons to consider. The pros is that honestly, it's a really great typing experience. I really enjoy typing on this keyboard. It feels great. I feel like I'm able to type accurately without making errors, which is huge. I really like the RGB backlighting. It's a big pro for me. The wrist rest is really comfortable and I've got no problems typing on it for long periods of time. It's got great customization options, including those 3D print files, which I really like. In terms of the cons, I actually kind of struggle to think of many really. I think the only thing is that maybe it's not quite my personal aesthetic. It's pretty close and I really like it. That's obviously very subjective. In terms of objective cons, I'm not really sure that I can give you many, to be honest. Like I said, I also kind of wish that it had a numpad, but that's also quite subjective, depends on your use case. So for me, I'm actually going to stick with the Kick75 for now. I'm really enjoying it. I actually don't think it's too expensive either. I think it's pretty well priced for what it is. So I highly recommend checking it out. There is an affiliate link in the description. And if you use it, it just helps to support my channel. It's no extra cost to you. But let me know what you think. I'm very keen to hear, especially for people who've had more experience with different types of mechanical keyboards. What do you think of the Kick75? Do you like the style, especially that retro 8-bit style? Is there anything that you would change about the Kick75? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, if you want to see a bit more of my entire desk setup, obviously pre the Kick75, and make sure you check out this video right here where I go through a tour of the entire thing.